summarizes all that as well as the fiscal impact. And there were six specific conditions associated with the reconfiguration. And I'm going to read them before I make the motion so that the motion doesn't have to become encumbered with 7 bullet points. Reduce the lanes from 4 to 2 except for the block between Capitol Drive and Shorewood Boulevard. Restrict parking 500 feet north of Lake Capitol intersection only on the west side from 7 to 9 a.m. And 300 feet in the same direction from 4 to 6 p.m. Both those restrictions are Monday through Friday only. I should add, wait a minute, why are we talking about north of Capitol Drive when this is the south of Capitol Drive action? The reason being, after further consideration and evaluation and discussion with DOT, it was determined that adding this additional restriction north of Capitol Drive, regardless of what happens on the south side, needs to happen in order to keep the Capitol Drive, Lake Drive intersection unaffected. 3, restrict parking south of Capitol Drive on the west side from 7 to 9 a.m. for a distance of 750 feet. 4, restrict parking at all times on the east side of Lake Drive from Capitol to Shorewood Boulevard. 5, restrict parking from 4 to 6 p.m. on the east side of Lake Drive within 50 feet north and south of each cross-street curb line. 6, add striped letter crosswalks across Lake Drive at key intersections based on village staff recommendation. And then there is a 7th item, and this was added in the committee discussion, is to direct staff, and I sent this to you, Sarah, so you'll have the language. Direct staff to evaluate additional no parking space along the west side of Lake Drive to facilitate cars entering southbound lake traffic from the westbound connecting streets. In other words, as we're traveling west on my street, Newton Avenue, as I get to turn south, that I'd have a little bit of time to merge in, if you will. That parking doesn't start within 15 feet of that curb, just a little bit of extra time, and staff will evaluate that. It might be to the first driveway. In some cases, the first driveway is set 30 feet. In some cases, the first driveway is 50 feet. In one case, the first driveway is 100 feet. So, but at any rate, to give the southbound traffic a little bit of merge time. So those were the conditions. This was discussed, as Rachel said, it was approved by pedestrian, or recommended by Pedestrian and Bike Safety. It does come with the recommendation of Public Works. So I will move to authorize staff to work internally and with the engineer to incorporate those 7 actions for the Lake Drive resurfacing project for areas south of Capitol Drive.
Second.
We had also talked about this item 7 is northwest parking on the side streets as you're going heading south on Lake. We had gotten an email that was brought up at the public meeting, is to provide a little more no parking area on the north side of the cross street on Lake, so you got better sight lines. And that was also included to ask staff to evaluate, looking at each, how pulling that back.
Yeah,
far.
yeah, and that won't impact our striping plan and paving plan, but it's something that we've asked them to look at.
Is Chief Never still here, or do we lose him? Is he in the hall?
Which chief?
Chief?
Fire chief is back with.
Oh, not fire.
Oh,
Yeah,
police chief.
no, please, I think he's gone.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna ask, there's a, in page 12 of 13 of some document, what am I looking at? Was this the traffic analysis?
This is errors, yeah, this is Mr. Boyd's report.
Item 5B, it talks about on-street parking 7 to 9, and then there's north, and there's a difference in parking restrictions north of Capitol versus south of Capitol, and I just didn't know if that's typical, if it provides an enforcement challenge just because of confusion. But I don't think it changes it doesn't impact the restriping configuration that's on the floor right now. It's just a question.
similar question about the 500 feet north of Capitol from 7 to 9 in the morning, but then it's only 300 feet from 4 to 6. So would there be a sign 500 feet saying no parking 7 to 9, and then 200 feet later another sign saying no parking from here to corner 4 to
That's how it
6?
typically would be done.
That would take me a long time to figure out. It's just confusing. But I don't know if there's a less confusing way to sign that. But the other question I had was, are we taking away parking from anyone who currently has parking at any time, or are we liberalizing parking like we did north? Is there anyone who currently has parking either 7 to 9 or 4 to 6 or outside of those hours who now does not have parking as a result of taking this action?
Overall, because you're allowing parking during the peak hour now, if you pass this, you're increasing the net overall parking during those time periods. With the corner modifications that were just added in, you could lose a parking stall or two at the neighborhood cross street on the west side of Lake Drive. Typically, we said not to allow parking during the evening peak hour on the east side across from the cross streets. Well, right now you don't allow any parking during the whole dog stretch. There is some impact currently. Aside from the morning peak hour, you allow parking up to, this is going on the east side of Lake Drive as you approach Capitol Drive. Currently it's during the rest of the day, except during the morning peak hour, it's 140 feet. I hadn't measured it. So we're changing that to 300 feet during the evening rush hour. So that's a slight change. And that's kind of based on our discussion with the Wisconsin DOT to make sure that the Capitol intersection operates efficiently and we don't degrade it.
Okay, so there are some residents south of Capitol on the east side who currently can park between 4 to 6, who will no longer have a parking spot between 4 to 6.
No, 4 to 6 right now on the east side, you can't park there from one end to the other through the village. Evening peak hour, you operate two ways
I guess my
from
point
Edgewood up.
is if I, and this was an issue that came up with the north side, is that if we're taking away someone's parking spot in front of their house, we need to make sure that those people understand, the change. And that's what, I'm a little confused of, are we taking away parking from anybody? It sounds like maybe on the west side we are, depending on where crosswalks are.
I think the net thing is a 0, if I try to read the way you're interpreting it.
No, I'm asking if, resident John Doe,
On the east side of the street, we're not changing anything.
What?
On the east side, lake side of Lake Drive, we're adding parking.
Okay.
Bottom line, during the evening rush hour, where right now you're not allowed to park there.
Right.
On the west side,
Right.
there may be at those corner approaches a change of 1 or 2 spaces because of the sight vision distance of pedestrians or joggers.
But those are all corner lots, so
Yeah,
someone could
it would
park
affect
on the
the corner
side
lot.
street. So it's not like we're taking a spot away from somebody, right? Because you're on a corner lot, so you can park on the side street.
Is that a change? Is that a permanent?
Hold on. If we're just talking on the west side, south of Capitol, between that and Shorewood Boulevard,
Well, you can't park there
No.
anyhow, right?
yeah, right.
Okay.
You're allowed to park, I think,
I
within
think I'm
75 feet of the intersection during the rest of the day.
Okay.
And we're not modifying that.
Oh, so about that or something?
It's about that, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm a little bit concerned. I mean, a number of people did write in with concerns about side streets, about, mostly about making lefts, except Paul's concerned about making a right too, so I don't know. But I asked a question at the public meeting about Capitol. I'm a little concerned about Capitol. We're getting more traffic because people being unable to get onto the lake, deciding instead to go to Capitol and make their turn at the light. And my understanding is that, I mean, I think my understanding of your model is that it's really looking at Lake and that Capitol Lake intersection and sort of modeling what's going to happen at Lake and at that intersection. And that it's, in terms of modeling what's happening on the side streets, it's not quite so. I mean, that wasn't the focus of what you were trying to model.
No, but we were keenly aware of it, because it's usually one of the first questions we get asked. And we, just based on our experience and doing these types of things, don't expect to see what I call diversion to get up to Capitol to avoid some difficulty. And it's just a peak hour phenomenon, keep in mind. We also checked with the Village of Whitefish Bay and asked that same question, and they said they haven't noticed any traffic diversion to their main arterials.
Yeah, but you know, Shorewood's a straight shot, Whitefish Bay is kind of curvy.
It's got a couple of S-curves in it.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, it's a little bit different. And I remember you saying it wouldn't make sense, it wouldn't save anyone any time. But I know, like, I frequently do this in River West, like I'll go up to Burleigh or one of the streets where there's a light rather than try to turn left on Humboldt. So, I mean, people don't, especially in Shorewood, don't always do the most logical thing. But I know, you know, as an engineer, you would say that's not logical because it's not gonna save you time, but people don't. So I guess my feeling is I'd like to do, I voted for the north of Capitol. We as a board decided not to do any traffic counts on side streets. So we're not measuring in any way if any diversion is happening or not. We're just gonna have to go on whether people feel there's been, so I'm not in favor of this because I feel like I wanna see how it works on the north side, if there is an impact, if there is changes in the side streets or traffic on the neighborhoods. And then if everything is great, then let's go forward with south of Capitol. So that's my feeling about it.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Passes.
All right, the second item we have on Public Works is regarding Wilson Drive, and we have before us both the letter from our design engineer, Grafe, cover memo from our Public Works director, and we discussed in committee the timing and necessity for this change, and it comes down to two things. One is the timing, because this board did not make final design approvals and full authorization to our design engineer until November. The activities to coordinate with the utilities were both pushed out on the calendar and, because of construction schedules, then compressed. As well, there was some significant, and the reason that became more significant is there's some significant utility issues, specifically with AT&T. What we learned in committee is that the complexity of the AT&T issue is there's a major trunk encased in concrete just below about the center of Wilson Drive. That as we go to rebuild it, it will impact the top of this concrete, it's not a vault, whatever it is, this concrete structure that AT&T has their major trunk line in. And because of the elevation of the top of this concrete structure, our subgrade, grading, and prep is gonna hit that. So that was some unanticipated design costs there. So I should add that regardless of what our selected design for Wilson Drive might have been, we would have had this issue. Unless we were going to an elevated roadway.
There you go.
Anything that approximates the existing grade would have encountered this challenge. So So these are fees for work already done. As we saw in our memo, and they total $8,500, bringing the total gray fee to, with the change, $243,300. So I will move to approve the GRAFE amendment number 4 in the amount of $8,500.
Second.
You can have it.
Discussion?
I just had
Trustee Mentor.
a question that when we had a number of discussions at the board level about, flowers versus natural plantings, and we've had a number of discussions about all kinds of things, and I think and I remember many times saying, if we are to do this, would it impact the schedule